My parents dumped me for 9 years to care for my sick sister. When they returned, I pretended they were just random people to me. Hey Reddit, so this is going to be a long one, but trust me, it's worth it. My parents literally abandoned me for 9 years to take care of my sick sister, and when they finally remembered I existed and tried to waltz back into my life, I pretended I had absolutely no idea who these random people were. The look on their faces? Chef's kiss? I'm 27 now, but this whole mess started when I was 10 years old. That's when my sister Lily got diagnosed with some rare genetic disorder that required constant medical care and supervision. I'm not going to downplay how serious it was. She was genuinely sick and needed help. But what happened next? That's where my parents showed exactly who they really were. Instead of figuring out how to manage both kids like normal parents do, they made a choice. They sat me down in our living room one afternoon and told me I was going to live with Grandma and Grandpa for a little while so they could focus on Lily's treatment. A little while turned into 9 years. 9 years. I was 10 years old when they dropped me off at my grandparents' house with 2 suitcases and a bunch of promises about how they'd visit all the time. And this was just temporary. Spoiler alert, they lied. My mom hugged me, told me to be strong, and then they drove away. That was it. No looking back, no hesitation. Just gone. The first few months I kept thinking they'd come get me any day. I'd pack my bags every Friday thinking maybe this weekend would be the one. My grandma would find me sitting on the porch with my backpack, waiting. After about 6 months, I stopped packing the bags. After a year, I stopped asking when they were coming back. By year 2, I'd stopped thinking about it at all during the day. The hurt just became this constant background noise, like tinnitus, but emotional. 4th grade was rough. I was the new kid at a new school, living with my grandparents in a neighborhood where everyone else had normal families. Kids would ask why I didn't live with my parents. And what was I supposed to say? That went over great with a 10-year-old crowd. I started getting into fights. Not because I was a bad kid, but because I was angry and didn't know how to deal with it. Some kid would say something about my parents, I'd snap. And next thing you know, we're in the principal's office. Grandpa had to come pick me up 3 times in 2 months. He never yelled though. Just sat me down each time and explained that fighting wasn't gonna fix anything. That's when Grandpa started teaching me how to work on cars. Every Saturday, we'd be in his garage working on something. First, it was just him showing me how to change oil, check tire pressure, basic stuff. But as I got older, we graduated to bigger projects. We rebuilt an entire engine when I was 13. Took us 6 months, but we did it. Working with my hands, focusing on a problem I could actually fix, that helped more than anything else. Here's what really gets me about the whole thing. My grandparents were good people. Like genuinely kind, decent folks who stepped up when their son and daughter-in-law decided to ghost their own kid. Grandpa was a retired mechanic, and Grandma had been a nurse before she retired. They weren't rich or anything, but they made it work. They took me in without hesitation, restructured their whole retirement around raising a kid again, and never once made me feel like a burden. They'd had their whole retirement planned out. Travel, visit friends, relax after 40 years of hard work. Instead, they got me, and they never complained. Grandma would joke that I kept her young, that having a kid around gave her purpose. Grandpa would say he was glad to have someone to pass his skills on to, but I knew what they'd given up for me. I knew the trips they canceled, the money they spent on me instead of themselves, the sleep they lost worrying about a kid who wasn't even supposed to be their responsibility. But they were in their late 60s when I moved in. They did their best. But let's be real. There's a huge difference between grandparents who see you on weekends and grandparents who are suddenly doing the full-time parent thing. Grandpa's back wasn't great, so he couldn't throw a football around or do a lot of the physical stuff a 10-year-old kid wants to do with his dad. Grandma got tired easily. They loved me, and I knew that. But it wasn't the same as having your actual parents around. My parents would call maybe once every 2 or 3 months. The conversations were always the same awkward script. How's school? Are you being good for Grandma and Grandpa? Lily's doing better. We're so proud of how brave she's being. I noticed how I was never included in that pride. I was just supposed to understand that my sister was more important than me. At 10 years old, I was expected to be mature enough to accept that I'd been demoted from son to distant relative. These calls would last maybe 5 minutes tops. Always on speakerphone. Always with both my parents talking at me like they were checking items off a list. Mom would ask about school. I'd give one-word answers. Dad would ask if I needed anything. I'd say no. Then they'd talk about Lily for 3 minutes straight. Her treatments, her progress, how hard it was for them. Never once did they ask how hard it was for me. Never once did they acknowledge that maybe, possibly, I was struggling too. I remember one call when I was 12. Mom asked about school, and I actually tried to tell her about this project I'd done on the solar system. Got an A on it. Teacher said it was the best in the class. I was proud of it. But about 30 seconds into explaining it, Mom cut me off with, "That's wonderful, honey, but we have to go. Lily has an appointment in 20 minutes. Click. That was it. She couldn't spare 5 minutes to hear about something I was actually proud of. They came to visit exactly 3 times in those 9 years. 3. The first visit was about 8 months after they dropped me off. They stayed for 4 hours, spent most of it on their phones checking in with Lily's care team, and left before dinner. Mom hugged me when they arrived, said something about how much I'd grown, then basically ignored me for the next 3 hours while she paced around talking to doctors. Dad spent most of the visit in the backyard on his phone. They left after dinner without staying the night. said they needed to get back in case Lily needed them. The second visit was maybe 2 years later, lasted even less time. They showed up around noon. We had lunch at some chain restaurant where nobody talked about anything real, and they were gone by 3. That visit I remember because it was 2 weeks after my 13th birthday. A birthday they'd completely forgotten. Not even a card. When I mentioned it at lunch, Mom looked horrified and promised to send something to make up for it. She never did. The third visit was so brief and awkward I barely remember it. Might have been year 5 or 6. They came in the morning, sat in the living room for about an hour, making small talk with Grandma and Grandpa, barely spoke to me directly, then left. I remember Dad saying they should do this more often as they walked out the door. Narrator voice. They did not do it more often. Birthdays? I got a card in the mail with $20 inside. Sometimes they'd remember to call, sometimes they wouldn't. My 11th birthday, no call. My 13th, no card. My 15th, they called 3 weeks late and acted like that was totally normal. Sorry, honey, things have been so hectic with Lily's treatments. Always an excuse. Always about Lily. Christmas was the same deal. Generic card, maybe $50. A 2-minute phone call where my mom would cry about how hard everything was for them. For them. Never once did they ask how hard it was for me. My first Christmas at Grandma and Grandpa's house, I was 11. I woke up expecting, I don't know what I expected, but there was this tiny hope that maybe my parents would surprise me, show up, spend the day with me. Instead, I got a call at 9 p.m. where they wished me Merry Christmas, and then immediately started talking about how Lily was finally sleeping through the night again. I went to bed that night and cried for the first time in months. Grandma found me in the morning, eyes still red. She didn't say anything, just hugged me and made my favorite breakfast. That's who she was. She couldn't fix the situation, couldn't bring my parents back, but she could make chocolate chip pancakes and sit with me while I ate them. Small things like that meant everything. You know what messes with a kid's head? Watching your parents choose your sibling over you. Not in the normal, your sister needs more attention right now way, but in the, we literally don't have room in our lives for both of you way. Every time I'd see a dad playing catch with his kid at the park, or a family eating together at a restaurant, I'd feel this weight in my chest. That should have been me. That was supposed to be me. School was weird. Teachers would ask about my parents during conferences, and I'd have to explain that I lived with my grandparents because my sister was sick. The looks of pity got old fast. Other kids would talk about family vacations or what their parents did for a living, and I'd just sit there quietly, pretending I didn't care. Some kids asked why my parents didn't want me. That question haunted me for years. Here's what saved me though. My grandparents never once badmouthed my parents to me. They'd get frustrated. I could tell by the way Grandma would go quiet and tight-lipped after one of those rare phone calls, but they never said anything directly negative. They just kept showing up for me. Every single day. Grandpa taught me how to change oil, fix a leaky faucet, do basic electrical work. Grandma taught me how to cook, do laundry, manage money. They were parenting me while my actual parents were playing house with just one kid. When I turned 13, I started working part-time at a local grocery store, bagging groceries and doing cart returns. Minimum wage, but it was mine. I saved almost every penny. By the time I was 15, I had a solid chunk saved up. 16, I bought myself a beat-up Honda Civic with cash. My parents didn't contribute a dime to any of it. They didn't even know about the car until months after I'd bought it. High school was when I really started to thrive. I joined the wrestling team, something I could do solo without needing parents in the stands every week. Got pretty good at it too. Made varsity my sophomore year, went to regionals junior and senior year. Wrestling became my outlet for all that anger and frustration I'd been carrying around for years. Every match was a chance to prove something to myself, even if it wasn't clear what I was trying to prove. My coach, Coach Henderson, saw something in me from day one. He was this gruff ex-Marine type who didn't take crap from anyone, but also genuinely cared about his wrestlers. After practice one day during my freshman year, he pulled me aside and asked about my situation. I gave him the basics. Living with grandparents, parents focused on sick sister. He just nodded and said, "All right, you need anything, you come to me." That meant a lot, more than he probably knew. Coach Henderson became this constant in my life. He'd give me rides home from practice when Grandpa's back was too bad to pick me up. He'd slip me protein bars and sports drinks when he knew money was tight at home. He never made a big deal about it, just did it. When I made varsity sophomore year, he was the first person to tell me he was proud of me. Not good job, not nice work. He said, "I'm proud of you." I'm not gonna lie, I almost cried right there on the mat. Guess how many matches my parents attended? 0. Not one. My grandparents came to every single match they could physically manage. Grandpa would bring his seat cushion for his back, and Grandma would bring snacks for the team. They'd sit in the stands and cheer louder than any other parents there. Other kids' parents would come up and talk to them, tell them what a good wrestler I was, how disciplined I was. Grandma would beam with pride and say, "That's our boy." But sometimes I'd watch other wrestlers with their parents in the stands. Dads recording matches on their phones, moms jumping up and cheering, whole families there to support one kid. And I'd feel that familiar weight in my chest. My senior year, I made it to the regional finals. Biggest match of my high school career. Lost by 2 points to a kid who went on to get a Division I scholarship. It was the best I'd ever wrestled. As I walked off the mat, I looked up into the stands and saw Grandma and Grandpa on their feet clapping. Coach Henderson came over and shook my hand, told me I'd done everything right, and I was happy. I really was. But later that night, alone in my room, I couldn't help but wonder if my parents even knew I wrestled, if they knew I'd made it to regionals, if they cared. Academically, I kept my head down and did the work, maintained a 3.6 GPA without much effort. I wasn't brilliant or anything, but I understood early on that grades were my ticket out. Out of the situation, out of the small town, out of the pain. So I showed up, did the assignments, took the tests. Teachers liked me because I was quiet, reliable, never caused problems. Some of them knew my situation, small town, word gets around, and they'd check in on me sometimes. Ask how things were at home, if I needed extra help with anything. I'd always say I was fine, easier than explaining. I graduated high school with a 3.6 GPA and a partial wrestling scholarship to a state school about an hour away. Got accepted into their business program. Not Ivy League or anything fancy, but it was a solid school, and I'd be able to afford it with a scholarship, some student loans, and working part-time. My grandparents threw me a small graduation party, just them, a few neighbors, my wrestling coach. My parents sent a card. At that point, I wasn't even surprised or hurt. I was just numb to it. College was where everything changed for me. I was away from the house where I'd spent my entire childhood as the forgotten kid. I could reinvent myself. Nobody there knew my story unless I told them. I worked as a night security guard at a manufacturing plant, which paid way better than minimum wage and let me study during the quiet hours. The shift was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., which meant I'd finish work, grab a quick shower, and head straight to morning classes. It was brutal, but it was mine. The security job was actually perfect for me. Most nights were quiet. I'd do my rounds every hour, check the locks, monitor the cameras, and otherwise had time to study. I'd sit in the security office with my textbooks spread out, working through supply chain management problems or studying for exams. One of the older guards, Frank, took a liking to me. He'd bring me sandwiches his wife made, make sure I wasn't falling asleep on duty during exam weeks. I took a full course load every semester, 15 to 18 credits. Supply chain management isn't the sexiest major, but it's practical. Turns out I was pretty good at it. My professors noticed early on that I actually gave a damn. By my sophomore year, I'd caught the attention of Professor Martinez, who taught advanced logistics and had connections in the industry. She started pushing me to apply for internships. Summer after sophomore year, I landed an internship at a regional logistics company, paid $15 an hour, felt like I'd won the lottery. That internship led to another one junior year with a bigger company. By my senior year, I had 2 internships under my belt, and companies recruiting on campus were interested. That's how I got the job offer before graduation. The company specialized in pharmaceutical logistics. Starting salary was $62,000 a year, more money than I'd ever imagined making. When I got the offer letter, I just stared at it for like an hour. I called my grandparents immediately. Grandma cried. Grandpa got choked up. That night I took them out to the nicest restaurant in town to celebrate. Watched them look at the menu prices and tell me it was too expensive. I told them I didn't care. Ordered whatever they wanted. I graduated college when I was 23. Grandma and Grandpa were there, sitting front row, despite Grandpa's knees being shot and Grandma needing a walker by that point. They'd aged so much in those years. They'd insisted on coming. We wouldn't miss this for anything, Grandpa had said. I saw them crying during the ceremony, watched Grandma take what must have been 50 pictures on her old flip phone. Meanwhile, my parents, who I hadn't seen in person since that third awkward visit when I was maybe 15, were nowhere to be found. I didn't invite them. Why would I? They hadn't been part of the journey. They didn't get to show up for the victory lap when they'd skipped the entire race. The job was intense but good. I moved to a city about 2 hours from my grandparents' place, got a decent apartment, started building a life. I'd visit Grandma and Grandpa every other weekend, bring them groceries, help around the house, make sure they were okay. By this point, they were both in their late 70s and slowing down significantly. I'd started looking into retirement communities nearby where I could move them eventually, somewhere nicer than they'd ever be able to afford on their own. Now here's where my sister comes back into the picture. Remember Lily? The reason for all this? She'd been sick from age 8 until she was about 17. 9 years of treatments, surgeries, experimental medications, the whole deal. And somewhere around her senior year of high school, she went into remission. The disease just stopped. Doctors couldn't explain it, called it a miracle. Whatever. She was better. That's fantastic, right? I genuinely was happy she was okay. I'm not a monster. Just because I got abandoned doesn't mean I wanted my sister to suffer or die. But what happened next is what really shows you who my parents are. Once Lily was better, suddenly my parents remembered they had another kid. I was 25 at this point. I hadn't lived with them since I was 10, 15 years. They'd missed my entire childhood, my entire adolescence, my high school graduation, my college graduation, every birthday, every milestone. And now they wanted back in. The first contact came through Facebook of all places. My mom sent me a friend request and a message. Hi, sweetie. It's Mom. We've been trying to reach you. Can we get your phone number? We'd love to reconnect now that things have settled down. We miss you so much. I stared at that message for days. now that things have settled down, as if my entire existence had just been on pause, waiting for them to have time for me again. The "we miss you so much" was particularly rich. How do you miss someone you actively chose not to see for 15 years? I didn't respond. Deleted the friend request. Blocked her account. 2 weeks later, my dad tried the same thing. Same type of message, same fake warmth. Blocked him too. Then they tried calling my grandparents' house. Grandma mentioned it during one of my weekend visits. She was careful about it, didn't push, just said they'd called asking how to reach me. I told Grandma that I'd get back to them when I was ready. She nodded, understanding. She'd watched what their abandonment had done to me. She knew better than anyone that this wasn't something that could just be fixed with a phone call. But my parents weren't getting the hint. Next, they tried sending a letter to my grandparents' house. A physical letter, like we were living in the 1800s. Grandma gave it to me unopened. I tossed it in the trash without reading it. This went on for about 6 months. They were persistent, I'll give them that. Eventually, they must have done some digging because they figured out where I worked. That's when things got really weird. I was at my desk one Tuesday afternoon, working on a shipping logistics report, when our receptionist called my extension. "There are 2 people here asking for you. They say they're your parents." My heart started pounding. Not from excitement, from anger. They'd actually tracked me down at my workplace. Who does that? I could have refused to see them. Should have, probably. But something in me wanted to face this. I'd spent 15 years being the forgotten one, the kid who wasn't important enough to stick around for. I'd built a whole life without them. And now here they were, showing up uninvited because they decided it was time to play family again. So I went down to the lobby, and there they were. My mom and dad, looking older than I remembered, but not by much. Mom had some gray in her hair now. Dad had gained weight, had reading glasses hanging from his shirt pocket. They looked like regular middle-aged people. But to me, they were strangers. The moment they saw me, my mom's face lit up. She started walking toward me with her arms out like she was going to hug me. My dad had this weird smile on his face, like everything was totally normal. And that's when I did it. I stopped walking and gave them the most confused look I could manage, like I was trying to figure out who these random people were and why they were approaching me. "Can I help you?" I asked, voice polite but completely neutral, like I'd never seen them before in my life. My mom's arms dropped. "Sweetie, it's us. It's Mom and Dad." I tilted my head slightly, really playing up the confusion. "I'm sorry, I think there's been some mistake. I don't know you." The silence that followed was beautiful. My dad's smile vanished. My mom looked like she'd been slapped. "What are you talking about?" Dad asked, his voice getting that edge it used to have when he was frustrated. "We're your parents." I shook my head, kept my expression perfectly neutral. "No, you're not. My parents are Walter and Diane. Those were my grandparents' names. I don't know who you are or why you're here, but you need to leave. This is my workplace." "Stop this right now," my mom said, her voice getting shaky. "We know you're upset, but we can explain everything." "Ma'am," I interrupted, keeping my voice level. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not interested in whatever this is." I turned to the receptionist. "Sarah, can you please call security? These people are disrupting the workplace." "You're being ridiculous," my dad snapped. "We're your parents. We raised you." That's when I laughed. Couldn't help it. "You raised me? That's interesting, because the people who raised me are currently living in a small house 2 hours from here. They're in their late 70s. They're the ones who taught me how to tie my shoes, helped me with homework, came to my wrestling matches, paid for my school clothes, made sure I had dinner every night. Those are my parents. You're nobody to me." My mom started crying. Actual tears. "Please, we had to make an impossible choice. Lily was sick. We had to focus on her treatment. And I hope she's doing better," I said, and I meant it. "But that doesn't change the fact that you made your choice 15 years ago. You chose her. You chose to drop me off and forget about me. And that's fine. You did what you thought you had to do. But don't show up here after all this time expecting me to pretend like you're my parents. You're not. You haven't been for a very long time." Security had arrived by then. 2 guys I knew pretty well from taking breaks in the security office. They looked confused but professional. "Everything okay here?" one of them asked. "These 2 showed up claiming to be my parents," I said calmly. "I've never seen them before. They're causing a disturbance. Can you escort them out?" "This is insane," my dad yelled. "We're his parents. Tell them." The security guards looked at me. I shrugged. I have no idea who these people are. That was all it took. The guards started ushering my parents toward the door. My mom was full on sobbing now, reaching out toward me. My dad was red-faced and angry, still yelling about how ungrateful I was, how they'd sacrificed everything for our family, how I was breaking my mother's heart. I just stood there watching them leave. Felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, not anger. Just nothing. They were strangers to me, and that was the truth. The people who raised me were Grandma and Grandpa. These 2? They were just people who happened to share my DNA. After they were gone, Sarah the receptionist looked at me with wide eyes. That was intense. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. And I was. "If they show up again, don't call me down. Just have security remove them immediately." "Can do," she said, still looking shaken. I went back to my desk and got back to work. My hands weren't even shaking. I'd spent years building up walls, creating a life where they didn't exist. And in that moment, those walls held firm. But they didn't give up. Of course they didn't. The next contact came through my company email. My dad had somehow found it and sent me this long message about how hurt they were, how cruel I was being, how they deserved a chance to explain. I forwarded it to HR with a note about an external harassment issue. HR blocked his email address from the company system. Then they tried showing up at my apartment. I lived in a secure building, so they couldn't get past the front desk. But the doorman called up one Saturday morning saying a couple was downstairs asking for me. I told him I didn't know anyone by those names and to not let them up. He said they'd been there for an hour already. I told him to call the police if they didn't leave. They left. This went on for about 2 months. They were relentless. Letters to my apartment that I threw away unopened. More Facebook attempts from accounts they created. They even tried to contact my boss, which was a huge mistake because he forwarded their email directly to me and asked if I wanted to pursue a restraining order. I told him I was handling it privately. The breaking point came when they showed up at my grandparents' house. That crossed a line. I was there for my usual weekend visit, helping Grandpa fix a leaky pipe under the kitchen sink, when my parents just walked in. Grandma had left the door unlocked because I was coming in and out carrying tools from Grandpa's garage. They literally just walked into the house like they owned it. I was under the sink with a wrench when I heard my mom's voice. "Walter, Diane, we need to talk about our son." I slid out from under the sink so fast I smacked my head on the pipe. But the pain didn't matter. I stood up, wrench still in hand, and walked into the living room where my grandparents were sitting on the couch looking extremely uncomfortable. My parents were standing in the middle of the room like they were about to give some kind of presentation. "You need to leave," I said, voice hard. "Now." "We're not leaving until you talk to us," my dad said. "This has gone on long enough. I've asked you multiple times to leave me alone. You've showed up at my workplace, my home, and now here. You're harassing me. Leave before I call the police." "We're your parents," my mom shouted. "You can't just pretend we don't exist." "Watch me," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'm calling the cops. You have 30 seconds to get out of this house." "Go ahead," my dad challenged. "Call them. We'll tell them all about how our ungrateful son is refusing to even speak to us after everything we sacrificed." "You sacrificed nothing," I cut him off. "You made a choice. You chose Lily. You chose to abandon me for 9 years. And now you're mad because I'm not falling all over myself to welcome you back? You don't get to do that. You don't get to check out of my life for 15 years and then demand I pretend everything's fine." My mom was crying again. "We thought you understood. Lily was dying. I was 10 years old." My voice was louder than I intended. "I was a child who needed his parents, and you dumped me here and forgot about me. Do you have any idea what that does to a kid? Do you know what it's like to watch your parents choose your sibling over you? To grow up knowing you weren't important enough to stick around for? That's not fair," my dad started. "Fair?" I laughed. "You want to talk about fair? Let's talk about how you called me maybe 6 times in 9 years. How you visited exactly 3 times. How you missed my birthdays, my graduations, every major moment in my life. How you sent $20 bills and cards like that made up for not being there. How you never asked how I was doing, how school was going, if I was okay. It was always about Lily. Always." "She was sick," my mom screamed. "What were we supposed to do?" "Be parents to both of us," I screamed back. "Figure it out. Get help." There were options that didn't involve completely abandoning one kid, but you took the easy way out. You focused on one child and erased the other from your life because it was simpler. Well, congratulations. You got exactly what you wanted. You had one kid to focus on. And now that she's better, you can't just reload your save file and pick up where you left off with me. The room went silent. My grandparents sat there looking devastated. They'd never heard me talk about this stuff out loud. I'd kept it bottled up for so long. "We're sorry," my mom whispered. "We're so sorry. We thought we were doing what was best." "Best for who?" I asked. "Because it sure as hell wasn't best for me. And you know what the really messed up part is? I don't even blame you for focusing on Lily when she was sick. I get it. She needed you. But what I can't forgive is how completely you erased me. You could have visited more, called more, been present in some way. But you didn't. You chose not to. And that choice has consequences." "Please," my dad said, and for the first time he sounded genuinely broken. "We're trying to make this right." "You can't," I said simply. "What's done is done. You can't give me back my childhood. You can't give me back those years. You can't undo the damage of growing up feeling completely unwanted by your own parents. So yeah, when you show up now asking to be let back in, I'm gonna treat you like the strangers you are, because that's what you are to me." "That's not true," my mom sobbed. "We're your family." "No," I said, pointing at my grandparents. "They're my family. They're the ones who raised me, who showed up every single day, who sacrificed their retirement to take care of a kid they didn't have to take care of. They're my parents in every way that matters. You two? You're just DNA donors who got overwhelmed and bailed." I pulled out my phone again. "I'm calling the police now. You have one more chance to leave voluntarily." My dad grabbed my mom's arm. "Let's go. This isn't working." As they headed toward the door, my mom turned back one more time. "What about Lily? Don't you want to know your sister?" That stopped me. I hadn't even thought about Lily in all this. "How old is she now? 17? 18? She just turned 18 last month," my mom said quietly. "Then she's an adult. If she wants to reach out to me, she can. But that's her choice to make, not yours. And for the record, I don't blame her for any of this. She was a sick kid who needed help. None of this is her fault. But it doesn't change the fact that I have no relationship with her. We're strangers too. They left after that. Grandma immediately got up and hugged me. I broke down in her arms, crying for the first time in years about all of it. Grandpa sat there with tears running down his face. They'd known this was all under the surface, but hearing me actually say it out loud hit different. You did the right thing, Grandpa said eventually. Standing up for yourself. After that day, my parents finally seemed to get the message. The contact attempts stopped. No more showing up places, no more emails, no more letters, just silence. About 3 months later, I got a Facebook message from an account I didn't recognize. When I opened it, I saw it was from Lily. Her profile picture was a recent graduation photo. She'd graduated high school, looked healthy and happy. The message was simple. Hey, I know we don't know each other, and I'm not trying to force anything. I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what happened to you because of me. I didn't ask Mom and Dad to abandon you, and if I'd been old enough to understand what was happening, I would have done something. I get it if you don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I don't think what they did was okay. You deserved better. If you ever want to meet up or talk, I'm here. No pressure. Lily. I stared at that message for a long time. She was right. None of this was her fault. She was just a sick kid, caught up in parents who handled an impossible situation in the worst way possible. I wrote back, "Thanks for reaching out. I appreciate the apology, but just so you know, this was never about you. You were sick. You needed help. I get that." What I couldn't get past was Mom and Dad completely dropping me from their lives instead of finding a way to be there for both of us. I don't have any hard feelings toward you specifically, but I also don't really know you. We're essentially strangers who happen to share DNA. If you want to grab coffee sometime and just talk, I'm open to that. But I'm not looking to suddenly have a relationship with Mom and Dad through you. That door is closed. She responded almost immediately. I understand, and I'm not a messenger for them. I have my own issues with how they handled all of this, honestly. I'd like to grab coffee if you're up for it. Just us. No expectations. As for my parents, haven't spoken to them since that day at my grandparents' house. They sent a few more attempts after that through Lily, who shut them down each time. He said the door's closed and I'm not getting in the middle of it, she'd tell them. The last I heard, they'd moved to a smaller house in a different town. Apparently, they'd spent so much money on Lily's medical care over the years that they were pretty financially strained. They'd both kept working, but between the medical bills and probably the fact that they'd basically lived for one child for a decade, they didn't have much saved. They were looking at working into their late 60s, maybe early 70s.